Alright guys, this video I'm going to focus on the nose. I know in my last video, that first head video, I said I was going to focus on the eyes, but I actually decided after I finished the video that it'll be easier to figure out where the eyes are going to go and to space them out more correctly if I already have the nose and the eyebrows sort of all spaced out before I do that. Because I got to thinking, one of the most difficult things about drawing the eyes is making them match, right? Making them, the same distance apart and everything like that. So I realized by drawing the nose first and sort of drawing where the bridge of the nose is and where the eyebrows and the nose meet, that'll make it a little bit easier for me to sort of figure out where the eyes are going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw a basic nose. Again, noses are something that are going to be different depending on who you're drawing, what you're drawing, the type of person you're drawing. I have two. You can see here I got one that's more of a narrow nose. This one's a little bit more of a rounded nose, but you can see they both have basically the same shape, right? Some of the shapes are bigger or wider or whatever, but they're still basically the same. So I've already sort of planned out where my nose is going to be, right? So I'm just going to draw a basic nose like this. I'm going to show you the steps how to do that, because noses are pretty simple, but a lot of people have a lot of trouble with them because they're not sure how to draw something like that. So you can see I've already, from my last video, sort of refined my eyebrows, made them look a little bit more realistic as far as their shape goes. In the last video, at the end of the last video, they were just kind of these little arches. So I've gone ahead and made those a little bit more realistic. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind about the nose is that your nose, from the tip of your nose all the way up to the tip of your eyebrow, that's sort of one continuous line, right? If you can put your finger on the tip of your eyebrow and you can follow your eyebrow all the way down around into the onto the bridge of your nose, and you can kind of follow that line all the way down, right? And I don't know, I think that's really interesting. You can because that's just we don't think about it like that, but that's one continuous line that sort of creates this space where your eye rests, right? So it kind of creates this little socket, more or less, for your eye, right? That's why they call it an eye socket. So in order to do that, first thing I'm going to focus on just the tip of your nose. Everybody has sort of a rounded tip where they're, at the end of their nose, right? And it's all, and like I said, some people have a, more of a narrower nose. Some people have more of a, rounded nose, but everybody sort of has that rounded tip. So I'm just going to do a basic sort of half circle, right? Well, a little bit more than a half, okay? So not quite like a semicircle, something like that. That's how I'm going to start, okay? I'm going to go ahead and erase this line here so that it's not in the way. I'm going to erase it here and here. I'm going to leave these up here kind of so I know where everything's going to be still. So I'm just erasing that line here, okay? So I've got the rounded tip of my nose, and then off the sides of that, I'm going to draw a curved line coming out like that, and another curved line coming out on that side. All right, that's where your nostrils are going to be, right? That's our nostrils. So I've got my tip of the nose here. I've got my nostrils coming out. Now, the sides of the nostrils, I usually just draw them kind of like, almost like big parentheses that kind of curve up and under the nostril here. So the side of my nostril, I'm just kind of draw kind of a big parenthesis type thing here. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Like that, right? Okay, and so I've got my tip, I've got the nostrils drawn, and so now the last thing we need to do really is just to draw sort of the bridge of our nose. And some people have wider noses, some people have narrower noses. I'm just going to draw kind of something like this. So we have our eyebrow kind of comes down like this, and so we know the bridge of the nose is going to come down kind of like that. And we kind of want this line to point towards where this curves. So if you can imagine it, or if you just want to draw it and then erase some, you can do the tip of your nose and then just kind of curve it up like that, right? And then what I like to do is just kind of erase some there, right? And then you can do a little bit more here. So like here's this line, and so I'm just going to kind of follow that curved line all the way up. And so there's the bridge of my nose, right? So there's your basic nose shape. you know, obviously it still looked a little bit weird before we add some shading, but when we add shading, first shading I'm going to add is right here at the nostril. That's where your darkest point's going to be. And I just kind of shade that in real, you know, almost black right there. Like that. Something like that. And then I'm just cleaning up that tip a little bit, making it look a little bit nicer. And then one thing I like to do, back in one of my older videos, I showed you how to shade a sphere. You're going to do a little bit of that on the tip of your nose, or that's what I like to do. I like to shade just a little bit around the tip of the nose, because the side of that tip of the nose is going to be a little bit darker than like the middle, because if, you know, if light's shining down on this, then the tip of your nose is going to be shinier than the side of your nose. So I'm just going to do a little shading on the tip of the nose like that, and then I can carry some light shading up so that it kind of meets that bridge of the nose like that, right? And then I can do some similar shading over here on the nostril, kind of like that, right? And then over here, like, you know, I'm shading this as if the light's coming from this direction, so you know, I might do a little shading around the side here, light, but I might also do some shading here, kind of in this little corner as well, right? So now I have a nose that's starting to look like an actual nose, right? So I got a little bit of shading going on, kind of looks like that. Okay, so that's a basic nose, really just a series of curved lines and a little bit of shading, and you got it. You know, everybody, I think the biggest thing that people do is they try and make the nose more difficult than it needs to be, but it's really just it's just a series of little you know, curved lines and a little bit of shading. Right, so there's a nose. Like I said, you can play around with making it wider, bigger, longer, or whatever, but you know, that's basically how you draw a nose straight on. Okay, so now my next video, as I said last time, my next video, I promise I will be working on the eyes, because I think that's probably the most important thing. You know, if you don't nail the eyes, then the rest of your face is going to look weird, right? And so it's really important that we make sure we have our eyes, that they look like they match, and that they are sort of evenly spaced apart, and that there's enough space between them, and there's enough space between the corners of the eyes and the face, like that. So I'm going to focus on the eyes and do a little bit more on the eyebrows on my next video, all right? Thanks, guys.